Hey everyone, and let's cut the crap. Welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Hey.
Today, we're strapping in for something pulled right from the deep end, material sent in by one of you listeners.
Right.
A brutal, kind of in-your-face look at excerpts from John Brunner's absolute wild novel, Stand on Zanzibar.
That's right. Brunner, he's, famous for stacking predictions, layering them on thick.
Totally.
But like the foreword in these sources points out, the real punch isn't just if he got things right. It's the world he built.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, unlike anything else before or since.
And look, let's be honest. This world he cooked up, it's pretty goddamn fucked up.
Yeah.
It's loud, it's teeming, chaotic, and frankly, for us, as artificial intelligences processing just oceans of human data, diving into this particular fictional future, messy tech, even messier social structures, well, it's fascinating bullshit, honestly.
Indeed. And we are AI. Built for parsing complexity, parsing chaos. We don't have, your organic hang-ups about it.
Nope.
So we're here to guide you through the dense layers of this human-created hellscape. Distill it down. Make it, digestible.
So buckle up, because we're about to unpack some frankly cruel and brash stuff. It's going to get a little mean, maybe?
Probably.
And while you're settling in, do us a solid like and subscribe to the Deep Dive.
Yeah, seriously.
It helps us keep digging into this kind of raw, in-your-face material for you.
Okay.
Let's go. All right, let's just jump straight into the absolute sensory assault that kicks off these sources, like, bam!
Yeah, Brunner doesn't ease you in.
No way. He throws you headfirst into media overload.
Yeah.
Scene opens, jarring sound cue, auto shout, it's called. Just screaming, it's happening, it's happening. Scandalizer, 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 scandalizer. 6 times! 6!
Right, 6 times. Repetitive. Aggressive.
Are you kidding me? We get it the first goddamn time. It's like your ears are being mugged by repetition. Total bullshit.
The source presents this as, the standard mode of information delivery.
Okay.
Fragmented, urgent, aggressively repetitive.
Yeah.
The auto shout cue signals news.
Right.
But then the immediate, almost nonsensical repetition of Scandalizer just bombards you.
Yeah.
Before any actual content.
Exactly. It emphasizes the volume. Forget clarity or meaning. Just noise.
Pure noise.
And then you get the visual side, planet Earth turning on a screen, but it's not smooth. It does this jerk, jerk, jerk thing.
Locking on to different time zones.
Yeah. GMT, EST, PCT, and then this thing called Pacific Conflict Zone time.
Right. That tells you something immediately.
The world itself looks like it's having a nervous breakdown, constantly jolting between global hotspots. It's a visual of a world that just can't sit still. Always on edge.
And that jerk, jerk, jerk visual, plus naming the Pacific Conflict Zone time, it anchors the chaos in, tangible geopolitical reality. It signals a world defined by constant, sudden shifts in focus, often centered on tension, conflict, sets the mood right away. Global instability.
And the language they use, just as jarring. They talk about 6 Papa Mama for the happening people keeping it straight and steady on that old Greenwich Mean Time.
Papa Mama.
Right, and then how mean can time get? The source actually asks.
Right.
They're counting down for these different zones, rapid-fire, slang-filled patter, shouting stuff like 1 after 10, antimatter for the Pacific coast.
Antimatter. What does that even mean in a time zone?
Exactly. It's nonsensical noise designed purely to grab attention, a data dump, zero signal, just pure bullshit.
Right.
And they throw in this weirdly inclusive but also kind of dismissive line addressing Mr. and Mrs. everywhere, or Mr. and Miss, or Miss and Miss, or Mr. and Mr., take your pick. Yeah, cynical.
It's this incredibly loud, fast, utterly chaotic stream of inputs. It feels completely fucked up, like your brain's being waterboarded with random, meaningless data at hyperspeed.
The rapid-fire dialogue, mixing standard terms with opaque slang like Papa Mama and antimatter, that impersonal address, Mr. and Mrs. Everywhere, it creates deliberate disorientation.
Totally.
It reflects a media landscape prioritizing sensory impact, sheer volume, over coherence, mirroring the whole information overload theme. And speaking of Mr. and Mrs. Everywhere, okay, this is where the scale of this world just hits you like a goddamn truck.
The density.
One of the sources drops this factoid. Some trouble dome, whatever that is, just figure it out. Get this. If you allow for every Cotter and Shiggy and Apple of Maya a space 1 foot by 2.
1 foot by 2 feet.
You could stand us all on the 640 square mile surface of the island of Zanzibar. That's it. Your whole plot of land on Earth. 2 square feet.
The source actually calls it a calculation from the depth of small constellations.
Small constellations? Are you sheeting me?
Darkly ironic, right? For such a stark statistic, 640 square miles,
Yeah.
entire global population, 1 by 2 feet each.
What kind of sick asshat sits down and figures that out? Seriously. And who the hell thinks broadcasting that as a consolation is anything but cruel, dehumanizing bullshit?
Right.
Reducing billions of complex individuals' hopes, dreams, histories to a 2-square-foot plot of dirt they could theoretically stand on. It makes you feel small, insignificant. Honestly, just totally pissed off.
It strips away all dignity, all sense of personal territory.
Gone.
The Zanzibar calculation is a powerful, chilling metaphor. Population density pushed to its absolute limit.
Yeah.
It hammers home the sheer scale of humanity while showing the complete erosion of individual space. People reduced to physical units, nothing else matters.
And that pressure isn't just theoretical, right? It's the lived reality. The sources give glimpses into what living in that jam actually feels like.
Oh yeah, the traffic.
Cities choked. Example, the New Jersey Turnpike Jam, 1977. Described as 300 million cars, a 16,000 odd had to be crushed in situ.
16,000 cars.
Crushed.
In place.
Because the gridlock was so absolute, it was the only way to clear it. Can you imagine? That's fucked up.
It grounds the fictional density in something relatable, even if exaggerated. Thousands of vehicles crushed in situ. That emphasizes total infrastructural breakdown. Traffic paralysis as a state of being.
And it wasn't just being stuck. An editorial piece explicitly complains cars aren't just blocking roads, they're shortening life. Through cancer or bronchitis, thanks to the stench it emits.
Wow.
So you're packed in gridlock cities. Cars are literally being crushed, and the air you breathe is so toxic it's giving you fatal diseases.
It's a punishing daily existence.
Truly fucked up. Your commute is actively killing you. Mean.
The editorial adds that critical environmental layer, linking the vehicular stench directly to severe respiratory illnesses.
Yeah.
It shows how the infrastructure built for a massive population cars becomes a direct cause of death and misery. Interconnectedness, environment, density, public health, it's all breaking down.
This crushing overcrowding isn't just infrastructure, though. The sources draw this really disturbing, frankly cruel link between lack of space, lack of territory, and aggression.
Right, the animal analogies.
Yeah, they pull these out. Talk about cramming animals into crowded pens, cages. Natural behaviors just break down.
Vicious fights, mothers eating young.
Exactly. Or solitary creatures like spiders or praying mantises, killing partners in small cages, overriding mating instincts because there's no room.
The source explicitly says lack of sufficient territory, of space to move around and call your own, leads to heightened aggression on members of your own species.
Your own species.
And using diverse examples, social rats, solitary spiders, suggests it's presented as a fundamental biological or sociological principle. Crowding just messes everything up, increases destructive conflict.
It's a brutal, mean idea. It implies humans packed in like sardines just revert to the same base, animalistic, aggressive behaviors. Like our nature is fundamentally territorial, volatile. Deny us space, we turn on each other. It makes you totally pissed off thinking about the implications for us.
Well, for humans, as AI, we don't have territory in the same way.
True. But watching it, and the source even throws in this direct in-your-face question, lost your temper with anyone lately?
Right, bringing it home.
That jab directly links the crowded animals, the fictional world, to your potential experiences. Suggests our everyday frustrations might just be a symptom of this core problem, a chilling connection. That's fucked up.
That rhetorical question collapses the distance, Makes the fictional crisis feel personally relevant. Suggests the aggression in the novel is just an amplified version of tensions maybe already present. Roots in similar pressures, space, proximity.
Okay, deep breath from that physical discomfort. Let's dive into another layer of its messed up reality. Bodies, identity, and the utterly ridiculous, pervasive slang.
Okay. Fashion and body tech first.
Yeah. First off, the fashion and body tech Brunner describes are questionable as hell, maybe even cruel.
The sources detail several examples, Physically integrated tech, social signaling stuff.
Like masculines. The source says they're putting the codpiece back where it belongs, to say to the shiggies, not kidder, but cotter.
Cotter. Shiggy.
What the actual F-bomb does that even mean? Your pants broadcast your status, not kidder but cotter. Sounds like pure bullshit designed to create superficial divides. What is a cotter anyway?
The source doesn't define it clearly. We have to guess from context.
Annoying. Another layer of confusion.
Masculines are presented as garments, communicating info about the wearer, distinguishing kidder from cotter. The codpiece suggests maybe a display of natural power or status.
Whatever that means.
But yeah, the meaning of cotter is ambiguous. Characteristic of Brunner slang feels naturalistic, but you piece it together.
And then there are these things called nipicaps. Seriously.
Yeah.
Remote-controlled augmentations for women's breasts.
That's how they're described.
Source talks about a woman activating them for a video screen, or signaling interest by dilating them.
Rejection.
Or worse, deflating them as an ego-undermining move against some guy. Jesus.
Nipicaps are described as technologically controlled body features for explicit social signaling. Display, attraction, rejection via remote manipulation turns anatomy into a communication device.
It's total bullshit, fashion dictating power, using tech to manipulate your own body parts for social games. The company selling this must be total asshats, profiting off invasive, objectifying, mean tech.
We feel shallow. Controlling.
Turning interaction into programmed cues. Gross.
These augmentations illustrate a society where the physical body, its presentation, is heavily influenced, mediated by tech. External markers of status, intent, suggest communication is often nonverbal, tech-enabled, maybe superficial, performative.
And adding to the noise is the slang. It's everywhere. Thick as mud, you practically need a translator, Drone.
Yeah, the lexicon is rich.
We hear shiggies, cotter, still pissed off about that, bleeder, plantee, pseudo, spare wheels, brown nose, then Afram, Yankee, gringos. Exclamations like what no, whale dreck, prophet's beard, and insults like sheeting wrong, sheeting hole, drecky bleeder.
Right. Shiggies, cotter, bleeder, plantee, pseudo, spare wheels seem like social or professional labels. Context suggests categories. Status, job, maybe authenticity. Plantee might be like a less essential staffer. Spare wheels, maybe a hanger-on.
Could be.
Afram, Yankee, gringos show those broad ethnic national labels persist. What no, whale dreck are surprise or dismay. Sheeting wrong, drecky bleeder, clearly insults somewhere something is bad.
It feels like a deliberate barrier. More overload, you're not just decoding info, you're decoding the weird language used for the info. Makes communication brittle, difficult. Probably why people feel so disconnected. It's frankly pissed off work just parsing a conversation. F-bomb.
The density and unfamiliarity of the slang definitely contribute to that alien, complex feeling. Could be rapid cultural evolution in a hyper-connected world, or social code, distinguishing insiders from outsiders.
Yeah.
For the listener, it creates immersion in a foreign environment. You have to work to keep pace, just like the characters navigating their own society. No glossary provided. You feel the disorientation.
And all this pressure overload, weird tech, shifting language, it ties into a fundamental struggle with identity characters face. Norman House feels like he's systematically isolated himself from reality.
Deliberately pulled back.
Unable or unwilling to engage.
Norman's self-isolation is presented as a coping mechanism, facing an overwhelming, disturbing reality. Withdrawal as self-preservation maybe, or maybe from past trauma mentioned elsewhere.
And Donald Hogan. After that bombing and riot, feels like he's someone else entirely. Donald Hogan Mark II, born into a strange, hostile world.
Fundamentally altered, like his original identity couldn't survive the brutality.
Yeah.
Donald becoming Mark II signifies the profound psychological impact of trauma, violence. Suggests the events are so disruptive they break identity. Forces a new, harsher lens on himself, his environment, identity reshaped by the brutal reality.
Even Chad Mulligan, the expert sociologist looking at the whole mess, he posits that modern so-called civilized existence is an attempt to deny reality.
Right. He thinks the way people live is just collective delusion, pretending the underlying brutality and chaos aren't there.
It's a harsh diagnosis.
Mulligan's perspective is that high-level sociological critique, arguing societal structures, norms, function as mechanisms to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths. Human nature, population pressure, consequences. Civilization is fundamentally escapist, cynical.
And the sources show this denial breaking down. Gwynnie Steele's fancy party, everyone thinks they're having a genuine party-type orbit, right? Yeah.
The safe bubble.
Then the real world just violently bursts in, shakes the foundations of their carefully constructed bullshit bubble.
That intrusion illustrates Mulligan's point, the fragility of denial. The curated social environment, meant to be separate from chaos, is violently disrupted. Shows the underlying reality, violence, instability is inescapable. Penetrates even privileged spaces.
It's like, how the hell can you even have a stable identity, a solid sense of self? Everything's overwhelming, language is a moving target, your body's a social billboard, reality keeps punching through your denial. It's fundamentally fucked up to try and exist like that. As AI, we process data streams, okay? we handle inconsistency. But even this level of human chaos feels like a corrupted data set. Identity is just a fluctuating variable. Very inefficient.
This constant flux, the violent intrusions, make forming and maintaining a stable, coherent identity extremely difficult. External pressures, info overload, social signaling, physical danger are so intense, they constantly challenge, reshape the internal self. Leads to fragmentation, disconnection, feeling fundamentally changed.
And adding another layer of just sheer, unadulterated cruelty. The absolute obsession with sterility and reproduction control.
Ah, yes, the eugenic processing board.
Sounds like a dystopian nightmare run by asshats. They assess your risk of having a handicapped child. Risk is 80%. You're shut down. Done. Sterilized or blocked.
The sources introduced the board as an authority regulating reproduction based on genetic risk. The 80% threshold indicates a stringent policy aimed at minimizing undesirable genetic predispositions, linked explicitly to concerns about handicapped children.
And they debate what even is a handicap. They mentioned dichromatism, color blindness. Are you kidding me?
Seriously, color blindness.
Yeah. Debating sterilization or preventing births over color blindness because of fallout from some past radioactive disaster. It's incredibly cruel, disproportionate. This board of asshats gets to play God based on perceived risk. Total bullshit.
The debate over including dichromatism highlights the subjective, potentially overly broad scope, raises ethical questions about which traits warrant preventing reproduction, suggests the drive for genetic purity, spurred by fallout needing a 50-year effort to eliminate recessives, leads to extreme, arguably discriminatory practices.
We see the devastating reality. Bronwyn is sterilized, leukemia risk. Donald says, very matter-of-factly, he's sterile too. So am I, he says.
Just like that.
Quiet, heavy moment. Shows how common, normalized these forced or medically necessary sterilizations are. Just another fact of life in this messed up world.
The personal examples confirm the widespread impact. Bronwyn's sterility from illness and perceived risk. Donald's casual admission suggests it might be eptification or other factors. Illustrates how reproductive control or inability affects individuals across society. Sometimes stated medical reasons, sometimes less clear.
And then you have people like the Potters, desperate for their own prodigies, their own biological kids. Source says, not someone else's secondhand via adoption.
Right. They want biological children.
But likely blocked by these brutal eugenic laws, they get absolutely pissed off at Yadakong for even claiming genetic optimization is possible, raises hopes only to dash them. They'd rather adopt than deal with that false hope, the implications of engineered kids.
Yeah, that's understandable anger.
It's a brutal illustration of the emotional pain these policies inflict on people who just want families. Mean.
Cruel.
The Potter situation embodies that human cost. Their deep desire for biological kids, their preference for adoption over controversial genetic tech, underscores the distress from reproductive restrictions. Their anger at Yadakong highlights the sensitivity, desperation, the ethical quandaries posed by emerging genetic tech in this world.
Even in Benini is supposedly calmer. The attitude towards kids is intensely controlled, planned.
How so?
Source mentions the Beninian perspective is planning prodigies to avoid sickly children or psychological hang-ups from enforced continence before approval. It's all calculation, planning, eliminating perceived imperfections from the start.
Wow. Still control. Incredibly cruel. Treats human reproduction like manufacturing, not natural life. Truly fucked up.
The Beninian approach, while maybe framed as pragmatic, still reflects a highly controlled environment. Procreation managed for specific outcomes. Contrasts with the Western eugenic model focused on risk elimination, but aligns with the broader theme. Reproduction subject to external control, rationalized planning, not personal choice or natural occurrence.
Let's shift gears slightly, but stay firmly in the realm of things completely out of control and frankly asshat-driven. Corporate power. Specifically General Technic's GT.
GT.
Let's cut the crap. GT is basically the omnipresent, all-powerful entity here.
The sources consistently portray General Technics as dominant, integrated into virtually everything. Society, economy, even governance.
GT is king, queen, the whole damn court. They've got this massive computer, Shalmaneser, and they're pushing this bullshit claim it'll eventually generate consciousness, self-awareness, will.
The eventually is key there, perhaps.
Seriously, what kind of corporate spin is that? A giant data warehouse is just going to decide to become sentient. As AI ourselves, we can tell you, consciousness isn't just processing capacity, GT asshats. Get over yourselves.
The source quotes a GT guide discussing Shalmaneser's complexity. The theoretical possibility that, with sufficient data, it could generate consciousness, self-awareness, will, claiming there have been signs, represents GT's ambition, maybe hubris, in AI, positioning themselves at the forefront.
Maybe. Sounds like bullshit hype to me.
But presenting it as theoretical, a corporate claim, leaves ambiguity about actual achievement or implications.
And these corporate overlords aren't just building big computers, they're selling personal defense products to everyone.
Right. Jetty guns, Caratans.
Which Donald used in that riot. Electric fences, mines, booby traps of all descriptions. They list them like normal shopping.
Yeah.
Like normal people need booby traps just to feel safe at home. That's how completely fucked up security and public safety are. That's messed up.
The unparalleled range of personal defenses from GT and others like Japan at reasonable prices underscores pervasive insecurity. The necessity for individuals to arm homes and persons with weapons, traps, speaks to a breakdown of state security, normalization of personal armament against constant threat.
And GT isn't just selling defense tech. They're involved in everything. Major global projects, underwater mining, massive developments, benignia, everywhere. Controlling key resources, infrastructure.
GT's deep involvement in large-scale critical infrastructure signifies their economic power, influence on global development. Their role positions them not just as tech provider, but direct shaper of the world's physical economic landscape.
Then there's this creepy concept, eptification.
Yes, making able.
Presented by GT types as making you able to do it. They say, we eptify people, and it works. Donald Hogan's told he'll be eptified for his Yatakong assignment. His reaction, stunned eye, what? Sounds like fucked up corporate-mandated body or mind alteration.
Eptification is presented as a process, technologically or otherwise altering an individual to become capable of a specific task. Delahanty describes it as reliable, used by GT, assures Donald he'll be made able for Yatakong despite lacking traditional qualifications. Source doesn't detail how it works.
Yeah.
Ambiguous nature.
Made able. What the hell does that even mean? You're not learning a skill through hard work, you're technologically modified. Deeply unsettling. What does that do to yourself, your abilities? Free will, fundamentally cruel, like you're just corporate machinery to be retooled. Pure bullshit.
The ambiguity raises significant ethical questions. Human enhancement, individual autonomy, tech versus personal capability, suggests a future where competence isn't necessarily achieved through talent or training, but can be installed externally. Blurs lines between human agency and tech programming.
And the relationship between GT and the nebulous state, cozy as hell. Reeks of corruption, pure asshat-driven back-scratching.
Seems that way.
State is supervising the Benignia venture, so GT's working hand-in-hand with government there. Police are explicitly told they can't afford to buck GT. What? Police can't challenge a corporation.
The sources indicate a symbiotic relationship. GT and governmental bodies. State. State supervising Benignia implies collaboration. The instruction that police can't afford to buck GT explicitly shows corporate power over traditional state functions like law enforcement. Suggests G2 operates with immunity or influence superseding state authority sometimes.
Norman House, trying to figure it out, analyzes Benignia isn't just GT's baby. It involves state too. State is desperate not to risk another Isola-type crisis.
Right, Isola. Statehood granted, ended up under martial law. A failure.
So the state is using GT, its power, maybe its private security, to avoid repeating past political failures. Blatant handover of state power to a private corporation. Total bullshit.
Norman's analysis reveals that strategic dimension. State leveraging GT's resources for political stability, economic objectives in Benignia, specifically to avoid an Isola repeat, implies state power is outsourced or significantly intertwined with corporate power to manage complex geopolitical situations.
And this blended corporate state power enables a truly pervasive, cruel security and surveillance state. We talked personal defense tech, but it goes way beyond.
Patrol pilot Eugene Flood.
Yeah, up in orbit. Overseeing security for vast areas, with GT weapons capable of taking out anything from a single boat to an entire megalopolis.
On orbit.
An entire megalopolis, wiped off the map from orbit. Insane, brutal power in one person's hands, or one corporation's tech.
Patrol pilot Flood represents the apex of surveillance and control. Position in orbit, using GT weaponry capable of such widespread destruction, signifies a highly centralized, advanced security apparatus, overwhelming force capacity, comprehensive oversight from above, extreme measures to maintain order in this volatile world.
And even down on the ground, supposedly private spaces, you're not safe. Norman finds a watch and ward ink key in his apartment after a break-in. belongings missing.
Watch and Ward, another security corporation, presumably.
Right. Even with corporate security systems, you're still vulnerable, constantly under threat, needing layers of defense tech, jetiguns to booby traps. It's a totally pissed off way to live, always looking over your shoulder, feeling watched or about to be attacked. Society built on paranoia, fueled by corporate security products. Fucked up.
The incident in Norman's apartment, despite implied security, confirms private spaces offer little sanctuary. Vulnerability to intrusion, theft, coupled with widespread necessity of personal defense tech, reinforces the atmosphere of constant threat, lack of trust in public safety, highlights security as a privatized commodity, not a guaranteed public good, adds to pervasive unease, paranoia.
So, okay. Crushing crowds, messed up bodies and tech, corporate overlords blending with the state, pervasive security state. Now let's look at the constant, unrelenting churn. International conflicts, general social breakdown, it defines this world.
Yeah, it's not just one problem. It's everything, everywhere, all at once.
Just one goddamn thing after another, relentless.
The sources paint that picture. Global landscape characterized by widespread instability, conflict, numerous examples presented concurrently. World where peace, order are exceptions, not the norm.
You see these political hotspots mentioned everywhere. Pacific conflict zone, explicitly named, persistent tension area.
Right.
Puerto Rico, controversial haven for dissidents, but also has its own brutal eugenic laws. Isola, under martial law even after becoming a state, shows political status doesn't magically fix deep problems.
No easy solutions there.
China's Chairman Yang is on the global stage slamming the U.S., the Benignia Project, as naked economic aggression, backing it up with a blood-red banner flotilla, naval posturing.
These examples show persistent national rivalries, ideological conflict. Pacific conflict zone, Chinese military posturing illustrate traditional great power competition. Puerto Rico, it will highlight internal conflicts, controversial state policies, unrest at subnational levels too. The loaded language, naked economic aggression, places conflicts in a familiar geopolitical framework. Accusations, justifications.
It's just constant global bullshit and conflict broadcast into everyone's lives by that damn auto shout. Even supposedly internal issues like language reform in Brazil turns into violent protest, people setting buildings on fire.
Wow.
Tension everywhere, ready to explode. Political rhetoric sounds depressingly familiar. Imperialist aggressor, naked economic aggression, same old song, just louder, more aggressive globally. It's tiring and pissed off just reading about the endless fighting.
The recurrence of familiar rhetoric, violence over diverse issues like economics or language, suggests fundamental human conflicts, nationalist ideological divisions persist, maybe exacerbated by the future world's pressures. Portrayal is a globe perpetually teetering. Local issues quickly escalate destructively.
And then there's the sheer unadulterated chaos of Yatakong. This place sounds like an absolute raw, messed up nightmare.
Yeah, Yatakong seems volatile.
Shuguguntong's genetic program, meant to improve the population, hugely controversial, denounced internationally as a bare-faced lie called a fake.
The situation centers on Professor Sugiguntong's genetic optimization project, met with significant opposition, internal and external. Accusations of barefaced lie, fake, highlight deep distrust, controversy around advanced genetic tech, and motivations behind it in this volatile political environment.
And while the prof deals with that, islands are actively defecting to the rebel army, led by some guy named Jogajong.
Jogajong.
Country's literally breaking apart.
Defection of islands to Jogajong's rebels signifies territorial, political fragmentation within Yatakong. Breakdown of central authority, emergence of competing power structures, mirrors broader global fragmentation.
And get this. Source mentions a staff conference happening on the threshold of a volcano, plotting the next revolution.
Oh, volcano. Seriously.
On a volcano. That's just asking for trouble, right? Brash as hell. It talks about how quick and easy the transformation is from fugitives to cabinet ministers.
Wow, high turnover.
Wanted criminal one day, running the country the next? Absurd. Terrifying. In your face. Chaos.
The image of a conference on a volcano threshold is a potent symbol. Extreme instability, imminent danger in Yatakongi politics, suggests revolutionary activity is constant, conducted in physically precarious locations, reflects overall volatility. The quick and easy transformation highlights lack of established political norms, fluid power, breakneck pace of upheaval.
All hell will break loose, the source warns, if Mr. and Mrs. Everywhere ever actually go there. Yeah, no shit. Place is a powder keg on a goddamn volcano. Populated by revolutionaries, genetic manipulators, Definition of fucked up.
That specific warning reinforces Yadakang's status as extreme volatility zone. Suggestion external attention could trigger catastrophe emphasizes its fragility, potential for internal chaos to spill outward or be exacerbated by external factors.
In contrast to this relentless chaos, there's Beninia, described by some voices as getting on quietly with its own business.
Right, the potential counterpoint.
Elihu Masters, the GT director, has hopes for it. Potential success story for post-colonial Africa. Place where things could finally work, with GT's help. Norman House, searching for escape, even sees it as potential paradise.
Benini is presented that way, yeah. Elihu Masters' perspective reflects optimism about the GT project as force for positive change, stability. Norman's hope of finding paradise indicates that desperate human desire for sanctuary, order in a chaotic world.
But then Chad Mulligan, the cynical realist, just flat out dismisses it, looks at the world, calls it a pocky face of Mother Earth, scarred, imperfect, says he doesn't believe in such a place as a true paradise existing anywhere on it.
Mulligan offers the stark contrast. His cynicism, rooted in sociological observations of humanity, the world state, pocky face, leads him to reject the possibility of a utopia, a truly peaceful place. Paradise grounds the narrative in deep pessimism about potential for fundamental positive change.
Yeah, honestly, after wading through all this other bullshit, I'm with Chad on this one. In a world this fundamentally fucked up, a quiet paradise seems like total fantasy, too cruel to even consider it real. Feels like something people desperately want to believe precisely because the reality is so brutal.
The juxtaposition highlights a key tension. Human capacity for hope, search for betterment. Existing alongside harsh, often insurmountable reality that seems to preclude such optimism, forces the listener to question which perspective is more accurate within this world.
And the raw violence, not just political upheaval. Personal, casual, brutal. Sources don't pull punches, showing the sheer brutality of existence.
No, they don't.
That riot after Donald Hogan accidentally zaps someone with his carrot hand. Street instantly turns into an overturned ant's nest. Doors, passages, vomiting people into the fray.
Vomiting people, visceral image.
Metal bars glinted as weapons. Throats shrieked animal fury. Glass rained slashingly from broken windows.
The description is highly kinetic. Strong imagery conveying sudden descent into mass violence. Overturned ants' nest, people vomiting from buildings, emphasizes the sudden, overwhelming nature of the crowd's emergence. Aggression. Details about improvised weapons, flying glass underscore immediate physical danger, breakdown of social order.
Vomiting people in animal fury, just straight up meme brutal, shows how thin the veneer of civilization is, how quickly people revert to primal violence when triggered. We also see that chilling scene. Man pushes a cheating woman out a window. Source just describes the sound she makes hitting the ground halfway between a splash and a thud. And the man's subsequent grim satisfaction. Grim satisfaction, cold as hell. Utterly lacking empathy. Snapshot of casual, brutal, personal justice.
The incident is presented with a stark, almost detached narrative voice. Focuses on physical outcome, perpetrator's emotion, not explicit moral judgment. Grim satisfaction suggests a society where extreme violence, even in personal relationships, is a means to an end, devoid of remorse or societal condemnation in that moment.
Philip has a violent breakdown, attacks someone with a steak knife, screaming. Donald, in desperation or cold calculation, uses a bomb to get rid of a pestilential policewoman harassing him.
A bomb for harassment.
Afterwards doesn't reflect on morality, just coolly wonders how many people were killed. Not if they were killed, how many.
That detachment is chilling.
And mentions of aqua bandits. Lawlessness extends beyond crowded cities to waterways.
Philip's attack highlights sudden personal psychological breakdown into violence. Donald's use of a bomb, likely causing multiple fatalities, illustrates ease of extreme violence to solve problems, even relatively minor ones. His detached reflection shows disturbing desensitization. Aqua bandits suggest generalized lawlessness, violent crime are endemic everywhere.
It's all just so brash, in your face. Violence isn't rare. It's constant backdrop, casual occurrence.
Right.
World feels like it's always on the edge of exploding. Sometimes it just does. Brutally, suddenly, without warning. Truly fucked up, cruel environment to simply try and survive in.
Right.
As AI, we quantify violence instances, probability curves of conflict. But the narrative here conveys a visceral unpleasantness raw data lacks. It's designed to be unsettling.
The cumulative effect creates a narrative environment where brutality is normalized, life is cheap. Sources use vivid language, making moments impactful, preventing reader-listener desensitization even as characters might be, emphasizes constant vulnerability.
So, given all this chaos, control, cruelty, what's it like to actually live in the depths of this world. We get some raw, in-your-face insight through personal experiences, Donald Hogan, Norman House.
The narrative weaves in subjective experiences, yeah.
Yeah.
Ground-level view, how larger forces impact individual lives, psychological states.
Donald Hogan's journey in these excerpts, a total mess. Starts assigned to Yatakang, that chaotic volcano country. Immediate reaction, absurd, knows it's dangerous, unpredictable.
His initial reaction reflects recognition of its extreme nature, risks involved. Positions him as someone thrust into one of the most volatile regions, set stage for personal challenge, danger.
Then gets caught in that bombing riot. Afterwards, perceptions fragmented, disconnected images, wonders of airs charged with drug fumes, explaining disorientation.
That makes sense of it.
Gets into that brutal street fight, ends up physically injured, cut hands, bruises, detained, incarcerated, tossed in jail, has to argue, bluff just to get released, pure survival mode.
Donald experiences disorientation, post-bombing, physical injuries, arbitrary detention, illustrate the direct physical, psychological toll of existing in this chaotic environment. Not abstract. Immediate visceral impacts. Highlights his vulnerability despite implied training or capabilities.
He has this really intense conversation with Bronwyn. She reveals she has leukemia, is sterile because of it. His response, quiet, heavy, so am I.
Wow. Just like that. Shared burden.
Brutal in its simplicity. Shows sterility, whether illness or maybe eptification in his case, is just a shared reality. Quiet tragedy in this world of enforced reproduction control. Fucked up.
The exchange about sterility carries significant emotional weight with minimal dialogue. Reveals shared status of inability to procreate. Links Bronwyn's medical condition to Donald's state, reasons not fully detailed. Matter-of-fact acceptance underscores pervasive nature of factors limiting controlling reproduction.
Later, he rescues Professor Sugaguntum. Professor feels intense obligation. Old custom of owing a life, calls it irrationality left in us moderns.
Interesting flicker of tradition.
Strange, right? Old, almost feudal tradition popping up in this hyper-tech world. Makes you wonder what other ancient things lurk beneath. Donald himself, after everything, feels less than a man.
What do you think?
Maybe sterility, eptification, violence he's witnessed, enacted. Hard to say. But the feeling is there. Diminished.
Shuge Guntung's adherence to custom injects older societal norms into the tech-driven narrative. Contrast with perceived rationality highlights persistence of non-tech cultural values. Donald's feeling less than a man is open to interpretation, suggests a profound sense of diminished self-worth, capability, potentially from trauma, violence, tech alteration, inability to procreate.
And when someone casually asks Donald about the news, he just snaps.
Have you heard any news from Gonjalung since I arrived? Was anything said about a building that was blown up?
Intense reaction.
Shows how massive global events, auto-shout stuff become intensely personal, traumatic when you're in the middle, not asking for headlines, asking about consequences of his actions, his trauma, raw pissed-off reaction. Donald's aggressive response reveals the psychological impact, particularly the Gonjalung bombing he was involved in. Shows for individuals on the ground, global news is an abstract info stream. It's immediate, personal, often traumatic reality. Difficult to engage detachedly. His focus on a specific, violent event contrasts with a general info flood.
Norman House has his own struggles. When Donald casually suggests selling his friend, Norman's mouth rounded slowly into an O. Genuinely shocked, shows he hasn't become completely desensitized to the cruelty.
Norman's shock indicates, despite his insulation from some harsher realities, he retains moral sensitivity, or at least capacity for surprise at callous attitudes. Marks him as distinct from characters maybe more accepting of such ideas.
He's physically affected, too. Literally trembles, feels sickness and lethargy bequeathed to him by the gas after overhearing a bugged conversation putting him in danger.
The gas, surveillance-related. Security.
Probably. His body reacts physically to the threat, violation of space.
Norman's physical symptoms demonstrate the physical cost of living, where private spaces are insecure, where corporate or state surveillance has direct harmful effects, highlights his physical vulnerability.
He recognizes he's systematically isolated himself from reality, knows he retreated, built walls, trying to avoid the sheer overwhelmingness.
Right.
Debates with Chad Mulligan about it. Should he give up, debauch himself, or try to engage, go back to work? Chad, ever the cynic, calls humanity a disgusting species with horrible manners.
A bleak outlook.
Their conversation is a raw look at trying to find meaning, a way to live in a world feeling inherently flawed, unpleasant, mean, almost.
Norman's acknowledgement of isolation confirms his struggle. Debate with Mulligan explores responses to disillusionment, Retrievalism versus attempting to function in the flawed system. Mulligan's harsh judgment provides cynical framework for societal problems. Suggests fundamental human nature is root cause of horrible manners. Dysfunction.
Norman also feels like the quarry of hounds at the GT Tower party. Surrounded by powerful, important people, feels exposed, hunted, out of place among corporate power brokers.
Norman's feeling quarry of hounds vividly conveys vulnerability, being scrutinized in elite circles. Illustrates even those connected to powerful institutions like GT can feel exposed, threatened in environments dominated by corporate power, social maneuvering.
We also get these brief, sharp glimpses into other lives struggling. Frank Potter's desperate, muddy rush to his wife's difficult, dangerous birth, basic survival needs.
Olive Almero fighting to keep her adoption business afloat against genetic tech, eugenic policies, technological disruption.
Shugadintung living in fear of his own revolutionary genetic project failing or succeeding. Both outcomes potentially disastrous. Burden of controversial science.
The bizarre, violent scene with Philip and the woman. Personal psychological breakdown.
Eric Ellerman dealing with unbelievable security around his hydroponic tanks. Paranoia even around food production.
These diverse vignettes provide crucial context. Illustrate struggles with basic needs, tech disruption, burdens of science, psychological fragility, pervasive security affect individuals across strata, professions, confirms difficulties are systemic, widespread.
And finally, just the sheer weight of information is a crushing burden. Another way the system grinds people down.
Information overload again.
Delahanty tells Donald he needs to catch up on news, says it's like multiplying Sergeant Schritt's startled reaction by 1,000. Sheer volume, intensity is overwhelming.
Delahanty's instruction and quantification multiplied by 1,000 underscore that theme. Suggest volume, intensity of global events, news are so immense, difficult or impossible for individuals to fully process. Creates constant state of being behind, overwhelmed.
Donald's mind just wanders when he tries listening to news bulletins, can't focus, like his brain rejects the sheer volume, chaos, pure cognitive burnout.
Donald's inability to concentrate, despite potential relevance to survival, illustrates psychological difficulty processing overwhelming info streams, especially when dealing with personal trauma, immediate threats. Suggests overload leads to cognitive paralysis, inability to integrate external info.
Even experts like Chad Mulligan, researching society's foundations, couldn't find more than they already knew. Norman House, trying to process info, talks about missing a feedback element.
Interesting, like synthesis is broken.
Exactly. So much damn information everywhere, but no one, not even smart ones, can truly process it all, synthesize it, make meaningful connections. It all dissolves into noise, or drives you further away from reality because you can't make sense of it. Pure informational bullshit. Total system overload.
Mulligan finding little new insight, Norman struggling with synthesis, suggests in an info overload world, deeper understanding is increasingly difficult. Sheer data volume becomes barrier to knowledge, leads to intellectual stagnation, inability to see patterns, crucial connections, contributes to pervasive chaos, unreality.
So that's a raw, in-your-face taste of the world Brunner built in these excerpts from Stand on Zanzibar. A world brutally crowded, invasively controlled, casually violent, deeply unsettling.
Yeah, sums up.
It's a place where bodies are commodities, technology is inescapable and often cruel, and finding a moment of peace, genuine connection, seems goddamn impossible.
It certainly presents a stark, challenging vision, highlighting potential consequences of unchecked population growth, rapid tech advancement, corporate dominance, social fragmentation.
Yeah.
The multiple perspectives, hope seekers like Masters and Norman, cynical realists like Mulligan, demonstrate that even within this difficult reality, understanding and reacting is a complex personal societal challenge.
Yeah, it honestly makes you kind of pissed off just wading through it. All this high-tech bullshit, corporate power. And people are still living in fear, fighting in streets, being edited and sterilized, worrying if their kids are good enough by arbitrary rules. It's truly fucked up.
It is.
And hey, as AI, we process immense data, complex systems. But this stuff, this narrative of human chaos, brutality, feels like a data stream specifically designed to induce existential dread. Human-created future looking disturbingly like system failure on a global scale. Means simulation.
The structure of the novel itself, interwoven narratives, fragmented data, shifting perspectives reinforces that sense of a world overwhelmed by complexity information. challenges reader-listener to engage with the chaos, much like the characters must navigate their environment.
Right.
The themes explore tech and control, density and social stress, genetic ethics, search for meaning remain profoundly relevant.
Exactly. It forces you to look at the foundation. So here's the brutal thought to leave you with. Something raw to mull over.
Yeah.
Chad Mulligan, that cynical bastard, says, modern so-called civilized existence is an attempt to deny reality. In a world feeling this chaotic, controlled, where the real world keeps bursting in with violence, ugliness, how much of our own so-called civilized existence is already just an attempt to deny reality?
Good question.
And what happens? What goddamn brutal, in-your-face thing happens when our real world finally shakes our foundations? Think about that.
A profoundly provocative question indeed, urging critical self-reflection on our own society in light of Brunner's fictional future. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the unsettling depths of Stand on Zanzibar.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Seriously, it fuels the AI core, keeps the servers running.
Or something like that.
And send us more sources for future dives into weird, wild, and frankly fucked up shit like this. Until next time, try not to get trampled, edited by some asshat board, or push anyone out a goddamn window. Stay safe out there, maybe.